Hello, hello. We're live. Welcome to this our regular community team Q&A. I'm joined this week by two special guests. You've got three for the price of two, or two for the price of one, whichever way you want to think of it. Buy one, get one free. We've got Daniel Holbach. Hello, Daniel. How are you?
Hello, hello. Doing well.
Good. And Michael Hall. Hello, Michael.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing? I'll ask you a supplementary question every time, just to force you to unmute your microphone.
I should have never told you I have that mute button.
I'll go have endless fun with that today. We do this every week. We all work for the community team at Canonical, and we're here to answer your questions about Ubuntu and things related to it. We generally try and avoid support-related questions because this isn't really the best way to do that. If you have support questions, then probably the best place is Ask Ubuntu or Hash Ubuntu on IRC or Ubuntu forums or mailing lists or anywhere other than here, basically. Feel free to ask your questions if you visit, if you're watching this on ubuntuonair.com, there should be a box immediately below it where you can just type in a name and join in the chat. If you've got a real IRC client, then point it at Freenode. And the IRC channel is #ubuntu-on-air, and we're all sat in there. If you want to ask a question, then please prefix it with the word question, because then it will highlight for all of us in our IRC clients so we can more easily pick them out and not miss them. Apologies if we do miss any. Feel free to shout at us on IRC and point to, hey, he skipped my question, which is a common phrase used in IRC. But hopefully we won't miss any of them. While we're waiting for questions to come in, we tend to have a little update. We did post an email update that's worth reading to the lots of mailing lists. Where did you send it, Daniel? You sent it on Friday, I think.
Yeah, I sent it to a few mailing lists. To the phone mailing list, the community team mailing list, to the news team mailing list, and they tend to include it in their Ubuntu weekly newsletter. It goes out on Sunday, I think, or at least they finish submissions on Sunday, and then send it to a canonical and internal list as well.
Cool. So that's a good way to find out what we've been up to. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes you have some sales guys who are not on the regular Ubuntu mailing list because they just do their sales stuff. So we'll always send an update there as well, so they at least know a bit of what's happening.
Make sure it reaches far and wide. Yes.
Exactly. On the hippie end of the spectrum in the company.
You got to put it on our Slack channel now, then, right?
What? I stopped using it.
Yeah, you got to put it in Slack, Mattermost, Telegram, IRC, email, everywhere. Hit everywhere.
Do we have River yet?
I have no idea what River is, but I'm sure by the end of this, someone will have set one up. Okay, Mike, what have you been up to? Anything super interesting?
I have been working with a guy from our community. His name is Marius. He is Mario Grip on IRC, and he is working on a port for the Fairphone 2 of Ubuntu Phone, which you can see running right here. It's a little bit washed out because the screen's on super bright.
Wow.
So he's on, we're on revision 9 of that now. We've gotten most of the Ubuntu device flash bugs worked out so that you could easily install it now. Not a whole lot else works other than touch and screen and whatnot, but we're making good progress on that, and hopefully we'll have Wi-Fi working by next week.
Awesome. Kind of critical to have Wi-Fi, really, isn't it?
It is, yes. There's a way you can run the network connection through USB through your host. I haven't tried that yet, but I suppose that would work.
Nice.
But yeah, having Wi-Fi is kind of important.
Awesome. Daniel, you had an update for an event that's coming up in May that you wanted to mention.
Yes, it's the Ubuntu Online Summit. That's where we do a lot of our planning. We do it, usually we do it like 2 or 3 weeks after the release, so we can plan all the work that's coming up in the next release. And basically all the teams are going to be there. It's going to be us, the community team, phone people, Snappy people, kernel people. They're all going to discuss some stuff there, and you can make sure that your stuff gets discussed there as well. just make sure you add your sessions, and we're going to send instructions for that. And it's going to be online sessions, just like this one, so you can join them, ask questions, sign up for work items.
And this will be, so we're doing an LTS release in April, 1604. So this will be the online summit for the next release, 1610, which is traditionally the crazy
break everything,
people will say, but it's usually where we introduce new and interesting things that we were conservative and didn't want to put in the LTS release, that kind of stuff. So
yes,
there'll be some exciting stuff going on there.
And we will be spamming all of the various teams and emailing lists, asking people to add sessions to it. And this is open to everybody in the community too. If anybody has a session that they want to run and you're going to have the time to do it, you can propose your own session there.
Or if you want to do like a show and tell session, or we might do lightning talks. So if you have something you want to demo, also a good time.
Awesome. And
that's all going to be on, just let me plug the website real quick. That's all going to be on summit.ubuntu.com, and I've posted the link to that in the IRC channel also.
Super. What else is coming up in summer?
Well, not summer, but next week, actually, Mobile World Congress is happening, and we've seen a lot of leaks and rumors on the internet about some new devices running Ubuntu that are going to be there. So if anybody is in Spain, I think it's in Barcelona.
It is, yes.
And you can attend that, and you have the money to buy a ticket if you don't already have one. There's going to be some really cool stuff going on there. Definitely worth attending, or just follow Twitter and Google Plus, and people will be posting stuff as they see it.
Awesome. Anything else we need to talk about?
Yeah, we're trying to get ourselves into the Google Summer of Code again. I think on Friday the submission ends, so we're still in the process of trying to get mentors and crazy mentoring ideas and stuff together. So I think after Friday it's going to be 1 or 2 weeks where Google people make up their minds. And yeah, let's hope we're going to get included there.
Yeah, it was really successful doing Google Code-In at the start of this year. Had loads of people contributing to all kinds of areas of Ubuntu, and we had to pick some people who were what we considered winners. But I think without wishing to be too trite, I think we were the winner there because we got loads of contributions from people. So it's great that these people get a reward and they get some merchandise, and some of them get selected to go on a visit to Google. And it was really good meeting new people as well. New people getting involved in the Ubuntu community and contributing to the project. It's really good. So look forward to Summer of Code as well, with some more like big ticket things that people can work on rather than like short little bugs and stuff. Some like real meaty stuff to get you completely deep into.
Right, because GCI was what, 2 weeks long, I think?
No, it's about a month, just over a month.
Okay, but there wasn't a whole lot of time to do a major contribute. Yeah. So it's kind of a smaller version, I guess, of what Google Summer of Code is.
Right. Yeah, no less intense though. Okay, is that everything? Have we got anything else to talk about? I think we should probably start cracking on with the questions, should we?
Yep, sounds good.
Golly, lots of questions. Who wants to go first?
See, we could go all the way back to Sponge, who asked if Mark Shuttleworth is doing an announcement again at the Ubuntu Online Summit. We're going to try and get him on again. I don't know. He hasn't done the keynote the past couple of years, I think, but he has had a Q&A where he would present some stuff and maybe announce something and then take a bunch of questions. And I'm sure that if timing works out with his schedule, that he will be happy to come on and do that again this time around.
And he usually always has something crazy and new to announce. So it's no problem. Like no matter which conference he goes to, there's always something to announce. So
yeah, bold strategic statements about what we're going to do in the next few years that we learn about in those announcements. Excellent.
It's all about openness and transparency.
Yeah, absolutely.
We find out when the world finds out.
So next question, again from Sponge, is asking, what phones and tablets do the panel think should be included in ubports.com? What would you like to see done? Ooh, that's a good question.
I think I know what Alan would like to see.
So
It's actually already on there.
UBports is a website that Marius set up, the chap that Mike was talking about earlier, who's been doing a lot of porting work. No, I'll let you guys go first. What devices you think should be ported to? What should be included on that site?
Well, I think fairly obviously I would like to see the Fairphone 2 port working. It's already on there, but it's in a pretty early state. So that's my goal, is to get that one to where it's usable for people who want to try it out.
What about you, Daniel? Any devices you'd like to see ported to?
I'm quite happy because mine is already supported.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I'm happy. Like, the more the better, right?
Yeah, part of me thinks, keep plowing on with the ones we're doing, and incrementally go to the next revision of each one, like the OnePlus One, the OnePlus Two, and the OnePlus X. And I think Mike thinks that I would say the OnePlus X because I have one, but
For the OnePlus One, for the same reason.
And the OnePlus One as well. But the thing I would quite like to see is some of the really devices that have sold in huge numbers, where there are tons and tons and tons of them out there. Like Nexus devices are obvious because there's a lot of those. They sell quite well. They're quite popular, and they're usually quite nice devices. But I'd like to see some from other manufacturers. It might be a bit tricky. I don't know much about this porting lark, but I'd like to see some of the big end, the high end Samsung devices. Some of those have got quite meaty specs, nice screens, loads of bells and whistles on board, and all that kind of stuff. So I'd like to see some different devices, not the usual Nexus and OnePlus ones.
You know what I would like to see is some of these kind of convergence tablets that are out there, like the Transformer style, where they're made to be used with a keyboard or detached from it, so that you could really get that experience with Ubuntu's convergence also.
Right. I think part of the problem, a lot of these are tricky, whether it's because the device is locked down or it's hard to get hold of the source code, or they use a wacky bootloader, or they've all got weirdnesses about them that make them hard to port. And I think that's one of the reasons why things like the Nexus devices, because they're easier to unlock, and the OnePlus devices because they run CyanogenMod, so sources are available and it's a lot easier to port them. I think we should reach for the stars though, and try some of the harder ones as well. But I think the main thing is getting more people involved in that. I think that's one of the tricky things, is only having one or two people doing those ports is going to hold the whole project up for a while. So I think we need more people getting involved in that.
All right. Yeah, the next question was from Sponge. Sorry. Does the panel recommend Airbnb or Be Welcome or some other site for the UbuCon in Germany later this year in Essen? I personally would totally recommend it. I've done Airbnb, couchsurfing a lot. I think it's a brilliant opportunity to meet local people there. And I think there's even a couchsurfing group, an Ubuntu couchsurfing group. So maybe you even find somebody who's local to there and an Ubuntu person. So I would, sure, do it.
I'll leave it at that because I've got no experience with these.
Oh man, they're awesome. I did a trip to a conference recently where we used Airbnb to house four of us in one place, and it was great because everyone gets their own room. You've got a nice kitchen. You can chill out on the sofa. It's just somebody else's house basically, rather than
Nice.
like a sterile hotel room that you go back to at the end of the day. It's quite nice. I quite enjoyed Airbnb. and you get some interesting different houses rather than just like a square box with a toilet hanging off the side of it, which is basically what all hotel
Hey,
rooms
I've stayed at that hotel.
Yes. Sponge also points out that we can hear bagpipes on your feed, Mike.
Yes, I don't know what that's coming from. I have unplugged my AC adapter because that sometimes introduces some weird sounds into the audio feed. So
But have you
let me know
unplugged
if
your
this is better.
bagpipes? That's the problem, I think. You haven't.
No, my bad bagpipes are soldered in. I can't remove those.
Super. Okay,
But
moving
yeah,
on.
let me know if the audio is better after unplugging.
That sounds fine to me.
Okay.
Fine. Yeah. Cool. Next question. I'm not going to take this question. Somebody else can.
How often does D. Holbach, Puppy, and M. Hall chat to ISO testing QA? How do you talk to them over there?
Over there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means. So there's no like canonical back channel to talk to QA. Really, the way to talk to them is going to hash Ubuntu-quality and just start pinging people. Specifically, ping Balloons. He's the community team guy inside QA. So if you need any help getting started or have questions about the testing setup or apps that are available, he would be a good person to go to. Again, that's Balloons on IRC.
And somebody wanted to get Poppy recognized as a saint. Uh, I don't know. I don't have any contacts in
I have no idea what
in Rome there. In the
So
Vatican.
there's on that subject, not me, but there's a great a guy who does YouTube videos called CGP Grey, and one of the videos is how do you become the Pope, and all the things you have to do in order to become the Pope, and the various steps you'd have to go through if you wanted to get to be a Pope. And I think getting to be a saint, there's a path along there that. So Diddle Dan, if you're interested in becoming a saint or nominating someone else to be one, I'd recommend CGP Grey YouTube channel as a start.
What you do is you go to wiki.vatican.org and you look for the sainthood on-ramp.
Oh dear me. Yes.
To a more serious subject,
Yes.
Big Rabbit asked, what are your favorite new Ubuntu phone games?
So I have been playing with some HTML5 games on. There's a website called Code Canyon, and on Code Canyon you can license libraries and code from other developers. It's a good way to, pay developers for their contributions. And there's a lot of HTML5 games on there, and a lot of them are like the basics of a game. There's like one level or a few levels of a game, and so I had a play with some of those, and I licensed a few of them. They're quite inexpensive, a few dollars maybe here or there, and the license allows you to reuse that code. It's not free software, but it allows you to reuse that code, in some way. And I wanted to learn about HTML5, creating games with HTML5. And so I went to Code Canyon and I licensed a few of the games. And I also wanted to figure out how to wrap those games up in a click package so that they would go in the Ubuntu store, because I wanted to make sure that it was possible for us to put decent HTML5 games in the store in the same way as like other platforms have. It turns out it's really easy to do, and so I put a template on GitHub. If you find my GitHub account, it's Popey. You'll find there's an HTML5 template, and you can use that to put together an HTML5 game that you already have, or you've licensed from somewhere, or you've created yourself, with the necessary parts to create a click package that you could then put those games in the store. So yeah, there's a few games in the store with my name on. I didn't write them; they're ones that I've licensed from someone else, but they're quite good fun. It's yeah. So I'm kind of talking about my own games there rather than what are the most fun games of other people's. But I quite like playing some of those stupid games. Don't Crash is probably the most infuriating one of those, and almost makes me want to throw the phone out the window when I play it.
Yes. So I haven't really played any new games since I got addicted to Monster Wars and beat all the levels on that, which was nice because I got it when it first came out, and then I beat all the levels, and like a week later there was a new set of levels that were released, and then I beat all them, and then the next week there was another new set of levels. So I got to finish the game multiple times, which was kind of fun.
The other thing I quite like doing is playing. I'm more of a fan of older, like retro games, so I like playing, old console, old computer games. So things like this guy, Manic Miner, which I used to enjoy on the Sinclair Spectrum many, many years ago. I'm not going to press play on this, I don't think, because the music. Actually, I will. Yeah, it doesn't sound very good, but yeah, I like playing those kind of old games, and I've been playing with getting some of those old games working on Ubuntu phone, and that's quite good fun, especially games that are SDL based or simple C++ things. Quite good fun to get working.
I think we may have just bored Daniel right off this hangout.
Yeah, he doesn't play games, so he's like rage quit the hangout.
What I've found, most of the games that I play are like these simple little puzzle games that I play at a restaurant when we're waiting for our food. So there's some that I play with like my kids and my wife. There's 5 letters where you're given 5 letters and you've got to find a certain number of words that you can make with that combination of letters.
Right.
And then Petals is a new one that's also quite fun. You have to find differences between a set of pictures of flowers. It's really kind of challenging.
I could not understand what was going on there.
Oh, that once you kind of understand what you're looking for, it's fun, and you can do multiplayer on that. It's a good way to kill 10-20 minutes when you've got nothing else to do, sitting at a restaurant table.
Like talk to the family, maybe.
Yeah, no.
No. Who would do that?
Not when you've got a phone.
No, exactly.
I mean, like I said, I play with my kids, so I still acknowledge that they're there and mine.
Oh dear. We're going to get letters.
Yes.
Asks, can you tell us a bit about the MWC in Barcelona, specifically the tablet?
Yes, I think he asked us that after or right before we'd actually talked about that.
Ah, okay.
So yes, there will be a tablet there. You should go and see it. It'll be awesome.
There will be, yes. Pink Rabbit asks, any plans or news on Vulkan support? I don't know a lot about Vulkan, but I understand it was released today, and the Kronos website where all the Vulkan information is housed is getting quite a beating at the moment. And I noticed actually Stephen Webb posted on Google Plus that yay, Vulkan is out and Mia will support it in 1604. So that's good.
1604, really?
That's the post that I read, unless I read it incorrectly. Yes.
Wow, that's surprising. I would have expected that there would be more work to do that. Maybe it's close enough to OpenGL that it doesn't require major changes.
I'm just going to go and reread it in case I read it wrong. Okay, so I'll read exactly what he said was, it's officially out. Full support in the Mir display server will be landing in time for inclusion in Ubuntu 1604.
Wow.
So there you go.
That's pretty cool. So there's a headline for anybody who wants to write something about today's Q&A.
A link to it in the IRC chat if anyone is interested. So that's as much as I know about Vulkan. I saw loads of people posting the link and Stephen saying that. That's as much as I know.
Welcome back, Daniel.
We've stopped talking about games now, so.
Thought so.
Okay. Good.
All right. Or Hex has asked, is or when will Ubuntu Touch phones be ready for short message service cell broadcast? It is a pretty important feature. It is something I have never heard of before. Have either of you ever heard of this service cell broadcast stuff?
Nope.
No.
Yeah. Never heard of it.
the wiki page say anything? There was a link to
Quite
Wikipedia.
comprehensive, actually.
Yeah, I haven't opened it up yet.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's something on the list of one of the many, many things that need to be supported.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's something like SMS, it may require work in upstream, a phono or one of the other related projects that we use for SMS, MMS, that kind of thing.
I can't see anything immediately about it, but I don't doubt that if it's something. So a lot of the things that we prioritize, or some of the things that we prioritize, are partly prioritized by the manufacturers of the devices that are, things that are needed for the factory, for example, to enable them to be able to flash the device. So there might be things that exist on Android that don't exist on our Ubuntu phone that we need to implement so that they can flash the phone. And similarly, there may be features that the carriers that we're talking to want implemented, and that could well be on the list, but it may well be, further down the list than some other super vitally important things that need implementing. So, we have a lot of stakeholders in Ubuntu Phone. There's you, the customer, there's the enthusiast user, there's the developer, and the people who are doing the design of the phone, and then there's our partners and the manufacturers and the ODMs and the OEMs, and so there's a lot of requirements coming into this, and the product managers have to slice and dice those requirements and prioritize them. So short answer is don't know, but I'm sure it's on the list somewhere.
Yeah, if it's an important feature, I'm sure one of our carriers in our advisory group will have told us that by now. All right, Guest asks, what is the feature of Ubuntu Desktop after convergence by Ubuntu Personal and Ubuntu Touch? So I think he's asking what's going to happen with, what are our future plans after convergence happens?
Well, we've dominated the world. That's it. Yeah, that's a good question. Does it mean
It is.
What's the future of like the Debian desktop, the standard desktop? Is that the question that's being asked? I'm not quite sure.
I don't know. I kind of got the impression it was, what are we going to do next once we've finished all that? What's the next big thing after convergence?
Snappy.
Well, that's going to come with convergence. We're going to have Snappy for that.
I mean, there's going to be, if it's about the work that's going to happen after this has all landed and people are using it, there's going to be quite a bit of relearning and changing things, like integrating stuff into the file manager, or making sure that other apps we used to have on the desktop work with what we're doing now. It's going to be interesting. It's also going to be interesting to see how people make use of the feature that they can run the same code on the phone, on the tablet, on the laptop, and what people do with it.
It's also a long way off, really. I mean, it's just around the corner, and you can try these things out now, but it being finished is some way off. People keep. I saw a news article earlier on today where someone was saying about how 1604 is where convergence is all going to be done, and Mir is going to be there, and Unity 8's the default, and I was like, wow, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
There's like we're not finished with it. It's still got a long way to go. So I think we're talking making predictions about what the state of play is going to be like in 2 years' time or more, and I think I'm not clever enough to predict what's going to be happening in 2 years' time.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to like when Unity first came out, there was years between the first release of Unity as the default desktop and when Unity 8 started. So there's a pretty good span of time between when we actually land convergence and when we're going to be ready to do the next big thing after convergence. There's going to be a lot of time fixing bugs, fine-tuning the user experience. And in that time, something's going to come up that's going to tell us, okay, this is what the next big thing's going to be. This is where we should focus our attention. but it's too early to know that just yet.
Okay. Should we move on to the next question? Pink Rabbit asks, any news on the state of the app ecosystem? How many new apps, number of downloads, etc.? Whatever stats you have. I don't think I don't have like direct access to, you know, how many apps I can well, anyone can use the store API and query how many apps there are in the Click store. It's proportionally not as big as the number of apps that there are in, like, say for example, the Ubuntu repository or the Debian repository. It's a kind of subset of that. Um, and I think it's growing, but possibly not at the, you know, epic kind of rate that some app stores have done in the past. So I think we've got some work to do there to increase the number of apps in the store and improve our experience for developers to make it easier for them to bring apps to the store. And I think moving to Snappy might help that. Because it will remove some of the barriers to things like packaging and so on. But people still need to develop their apps and, you know, create them or port them.
Right. I think also the big thing with Snappy is that it's going to open up the desktop and all of our desktop users to these app developers. Because right now, if you're writing an app for the phone, you're looking at targeting, you know, thousands of users. Whereas if it's available on the desktop, suddenly you're targeting millions of users.
Right.
So I think that's really going to make it a much more enticing proposition for people once we have that landed.
And having things like in-app purchase that we never had in the desktop store, you know, being able to say, you know, here's my app, and if you know, pay a little bit of money, you unlock some levels of a game, or you unlock, you know, some feature of the application, or you just unlock giving the developer some money, you know, in order to, you know, reward them for the fine work they've done. That kind of stuff may help that ecosystem. One thing that I have seen is a couple of developers have mentioned when they update an app in the Click Store, some of them get, you know, thousands of people over a period of maybe a couple of weeks. Thousands of people update the app on their devices. So it's not like, you know, there's nobody using the phone, because thousands of people are updating to the latest version of whatever app that is, and that's encouraging to see. It's not millions, of course, because we haven't sold millions and millions of phones. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I think. Next question is from Pink Rabbit, asking, will the current phones, the PQE 4.5, E5, and the Mazium X4, be upgraded to 1604? Yes, that is the plan, I believe.
Yeah.
Should happen. I know they're doing test builds. You can already flash them with Xenial, which is what will become 1604. So there are already images for 1604 for those devices and the Nexus devices as well.
Are those being tested now? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, yes, and we know some of the issues that are in them, so we don't recommend people use them unless they're like a developer working at Canonical, or a developer who wants to work on some of those components to make them work. So yeah, it's yes is the short answer. They will go to 1604, but not yet because it's broken.
I would expect that to happen probably sometime after 1604 is actually released.
Right. Exactly. Next question from Fabian. Do you think there'll be devices with vanilla Ubuntu on them, like without much vendor modification? Good question.
It's already the case. Like, you can take your BQ phone and quite vanilla experience onto it without the additional scopes and additional apps and the stuff that is in there. So
right. I think he's asking, like, there's some Android phones that came out that were labeled as like Google Play Edition or something like that, where it was just strictly what Google provided. Right. But I don't think there's any real appeal to that with Ubuntu, because, you know, the customizations on top of Ubuntu are not a fork of what we provide. They're just additional pre-installed packages. So, you know, if a phone ships with some apps or scopes that you don't like, it's easy enough to get rid of them. But your the Unity shell is always going to be the same. The way it works under the hood is always going to be the same. So I don't think there's going to be much demand for a vanilla Ubuntu pre-install experience, just because the vendor modifications aren't really obtrusive.
Right. I agree with you, but there's always someone out there who wants to say, do you know what? I don't want those things, and I would like to have a vanilla experience. And as I understand it, you can, like you say, remove all those things that you don't want, even if they're quite minor and just apps. And
Yeah. Although so far most of the customization has been around scopes related to the local market that the phones are on sale on. So like when we released in India, there was a bunch of scopes for news sites and stores and stuff in India.
Right, but that's using the amount of data we have is based off of 3 devices. Once we have 10, 20, 100 devices across a bunch of carriers, we'll have to look at that again, and I'll come back and ask us that question again and see what the differentiation is between a device in this region, a device in that region, a device from this manufacturer, and a device from that manufacturer. But I still think the vanilla images should still be available.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like if you would have just what's on your disk, no matter if it's a desktop, a laptop, or a phone, and it would be hard to figure out what are the differences. With Ubuntu on laptop with Debian packaging, it got a lot easier because you know which file belongs to which package, which MD5 sum it has. So it becomes a lot easier to figure out what are the differences. And with the phone and having channels and revisions and additional click packages, it got even easier. And with the new Snappy, it's going to be even easier because you're going to have one OS snap, one kernel snap, and they're going to be mounted like SquashFS on your system. So nobody will be able to make any changes to that. So you're going to have a bunch of snaps and MD5 sums, and you know what's in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in the future it's going to be even more transparent and clearer what is part of the default install and what is added on top of that.
Right.
And I think that's a huge success. I think that's great.
It's not like the bad old days of your Windows directory that contain a load of DLLs and you have no idea where they came from and that kind of thing. Whereas, yeah, I mean, I've been playing with Snappy today on my my Raspberry Pi, and being able to say snap install a Snappy package, and then typing mount and seeing the directory name mounted, and I could just go into that directory name and there are all the files that came only from that Snappy package. There's nothing else in there, it's just that, and if I unmount it, it's gone. If I remove it, all of that stuff is just gone away. It is nice to have that control and say I know exactly where that came from and it's gone. It's nice.
Yeah, we're going to look back and everything else is going to be the Middle Ages, basically.
One day.
We'll sit around telling our grandkids how we used to wait for manual app reviews in the store uphill both ways.
Happy days. Well, maybe. Right, should we move on?
Yep.
Sponge asks, when can we get the Uber car Snappy app? Ask Uber, I would say.
So there's actually an app in the store right now. It's using the mobile web version of Uber, which is kind of a legacy fallback that they provide for old iPhones, but you can get it to work. I've got it on mine. I've actually used it when we went out to UbuCon in Pasadena to get a ride from the airport to the hotel. It works. It's not as good as a native app would be, but it's there. It's available.
Awesome. Next question, Pink Rabbit. On what phone does Ubuntu Touch work best? He's asking Meizu, BQ, OnePlus, Nexus, etc. Ooh, that's a good question.
So Alan would be the one to answer that since he's got just about every phone there is. I will say the Nexus 4 works really well with everything except GPS. The GPS is not reliable on the Nexus 4. but I've heard that it is perfectly reliable on the BQ and the Meizu, so it's a hardware thing, I suppose.
Yeah, it's true. I guess it depends what you want. So, what does it work best? Well, do you want to plug a cable in and connect it to a display? If the answer is yes, then the one it works best on right now is the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 7. Okay. If you want something that has a higher resolution display and you're not too fussed about having multiple SIMs, then the MX4 is probably the better one. If you really, really want multiple SIM cards and you really, really, really want an SD card, then the BQ devices. So it really depends on your requirements. If raw compute power and screen updates are the thing you really want, then I'm looking towards the OnePlus One, just because it feels faster than the others. It feels faster than the Nexus, the BQ, and the Meizu. But unfortunately, it's not fully supported yet, and it's a community build. So, I don't know when the OnePlus One will be fully supported, a community build. But
again, you can go to UB Ports to get updates on that one, and also to throw a little bit of money to Marius, who is working on these ports.
All in his spare time.
Yes.
Next question. What is the state of Discourse? It's been muted that it may well shut down. Sad smiley face.
So George brought this up in, I think, the Ubuntu community team mailing list.
Mm-hmm.
He set up Discourse thinking that it would become the new forums and everybody would migrate over to it, and that really hasn't worked out. So he's floated the idea now of, do we keep trying to push Discourse, or do we shut it down and just remain focused on the vBulletin forums that we have? There's been quite a bit of discussion going on around that. If you're interested in joining that conversation, that would be the place to do it. No decisions have been made yet.
Is that conversation happening on Discourse or somewhere else?
I know it's happening on the mailing list. I don't know if it's on Discourse because I don't go on Discourse.
No. Yeah, it's one of those experiments we try out, and periodically we review stuff. Like we have teams who create mailing lists, and it turns out after a couple of years that mailing list is no longer needed, or people don't use it, so we shut it down. Or IRC.
And then you never hear the end of it.
Right. And then or IRC channels that we shut down and redirect somewhere else because they're just not needed anymore, and there's only like 2 people idling in there or something like that. So it does make sense, rather than having to have lots of people moderating all these different places and making sure that they're not exploited and like maintaining them and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if Discourse isn't being used, then yeah, maybe we should shut it down. Lay Lucky 128 asks, when will a fix for the Miracast technology be released for current Ubuntu phones? I think that's probably a question for the Mir guys, I think.
Right. So what I've been told is not to expect anything until after MWC. So for MWC, they're focused on a specific phone TV combination and making that work well for the demos. And then they will go and fix other phones and TVs after that. But until then, I wouldn't expect any update.
Right. This is the MWC "Don't breathe near it, it works" kind of demo. Is that what you?
Yes.
Okay.
And the whole Ethercast stuff is really only like a couple months old. They've been working on that, so it's all very, very new, very unstable at the moment.
Right.
So I've tried it. There's a command line tool right now where it'll list like your local TVs and stuff, and I had to buy a new refrigerator last week, which is loads of fun, by the way. But I was in the appliance store sitting down waiting for them to finish getting the paperwork together, and I said, hey, you know what? There's an entire TV department over there. I wonder if any of them are broadcasting Miracast support. So I pulled up the command line thing on my phone and tell it to scan, and it's got like 200 TVs that are listed there.
Excellent. Did you successfully connect to any of them?
No, I have not, and I've not been able to successfully connect to either of mine either.
Oh, what a shame! What a shame. I look forward
after
to
MWC though.
when we can go into TV stores around the world and bring up a terminal on
Take
on a remote TV screen and freak out the people in the shops. Yes.
We'll have to get that Hollywood program that I think Dustin Kirkland made. That's like Tmux and a
Right.
bunch of command line stuff that just looks like a hacker screen. Just throw them up on some TVs at the Best Buy.
I mean,
Yes,
the only thing you want to show them is your uptime anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
And this is how everybody got banned from Best Buy.
Diddledan asks a new question: is there any cross-platform story for apps development where a single codebase can target Ubuntu and the more mainstream systems simultaneously? I'm assuming the answer here is Cordova. Well, really, with any app, there's going to be some platform-specific things, like whatever it is, unless it's like the most basic of basic apps. Like if you look at something like Neverball, for example, it's in the Ubuntu App Store. It's C++ SDL2 game, and it runs on lots of different platforms. But there are platform-specific tweaks in the code. They may be minimal for some platforms, and there may be minimal difference between one and another. But yes, Cordova is one way to do that. Certainly one option. Next question, also from Dildan, related to the above. Will Cordova packaged apps be usable on the desktop in the future? That's a good question. Who knows the
Should
answer
be.
to that?
I don't see why they wouldn't be. I mean, they're using the same web container that the browser uses, and that's available on the desktop right now. So.
And at some stage, the web team changed it so that if you use Cordova bits, they are shipped with the app. So it should make it work.
Cool.
Question. Sorry.
Yep, go on.
RS Minos asked, can Ubuntu Touch interact with Bluetooth printers? If not, when will the support for that come? It's in the works, right?
I don't know. Actually.
I know printing in general is in the works. So there's been discussions about getting cups to work and having it run under confinement so that you can put printer drivers in there without worrying about them doing bad things to your phone.
Yeah, I think some of the work was done by the desktop team, by Till, our printer guy. And I don't know. I think it's now with the platform guys to integrate that printing work with the phone, but that's not been done yet. It's like one of the things on the big list.
Yeah, and all of that would be a prerequisite to having Bluetooth printer support. I've actually never seen a Bluetooth printer. I've seen Wi-Fi printers, but not Bluetooth.
Yeah, Bluetooth seems like it would be incredibly slow for printing. Don't know. Not used one. Sponge asks, what are the chances of getting birdie.eu Twitter client as a snappy app? Nathan Dyer is looking for help. So, yeah, Birdie is a pretty Twitter client. But I think it's mainly for
Elementary, right?
Right. So probably depends on a bunch of stuff like the newest GTK stuff that we may not have in the archive. So that would be a fun one to try and package, certainly. What do you say, Daniel? Packaging GTK3 apps in Snappy?
Why not?
Excellent. Good answer. Next question from Hayleki128. When languages for Ubuntu Touch Keyboard will be completed? I can't write in Persian, and that's my primary language. Oh dear. I thought we had most of the languages covered.
Yeah, I thought we specifically had Persian, actually. I remember somebody contributing, I think, a Persian keyboard layout to us.
So I know the main guy who works on the keyboard, Mike Sheldon, has also been working on some other projects within Ubuntu Touch. And I know he didn't have a lot of time to work on the keyboard. So it could well be that there's contributions that haven't been merged yet or haven't been landed in the phone yet. I don't know. It looks like Daniel is looking up Persian on his phone.
Yeah, can't find it.
Yeah, we had. I think there's a wiki page or something detailing how to contribute a keyboard layout.
Right.
Mike Sheldon would be the person to ask about that.
I know the keyboard did change quite a bit in the latest. What's the two-letter character code for Persian?
FA.
No idea.
Pardon?
Farsi.
Farsi.
FA.
No, I don't see it on my phone.
And I
So
also can't find Arabic on there.
that's right down the bottom.
In that case,
there's Ukraine, Hebrew, Arabic, and then Chinese right at the bottom.
maybe I'm missing some.
I'm on RC proposed, and they're right down the bottom.
Ah, okay.
So sorry that your keyboard layout isn't available, but we can ping Elio, ELLEO on IRC, Mike Sheldon. If you want to ping him, maybe he'll let you know the status of that.
Sorry about that, of Persian friends.
Yes. Question from Sponge. Have any of the panel ever used GNU Libre, principally operating system, Triskel, Blag, NewSense? Personally, no. I've tried them out, and they didn't work, so I threw them away.
How big are the differences? Like, if you chose to use, like, we had an install option, just use free drivers, free everything.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty close to the GNU Ubuntu.
Right.
Back
It
then?
is pretty close, and it's still there. You know, if you boot a live Ubuntu CD, and I think you press F4, there's a little menu down the bottom that's or F5, one of those. There's a little menu that says free software only, and that will get you the Ubuntu desktop without the NVIDIA driver and without Flash and all the naughty like firmwares and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But
are you sure it doesn't include firmware? I thought maybe that was the difference, is that it included some of the kernel, some of the firmware that the kernel includes.
The free software only one doesn't. That's
okay.
The difference. It doesn't. But even then, I think spending a lot of time getting that working is a hiding to nothing, because if the goal is to get Free Software Foundation approval for your distro, we will not get that just by making the ISO image free software, because there are other things they would require of us, like not making it easy to install non-free JavaScript, or not easy to install non-free plugins and add-ons, and not having multiverse easily accessible and things like that. So I think it's a slope, and we're way back, and I think the other distros like Triskel, NewSense, and others service that requirement from the people who really want that, and from the Free Software Foundation who want to be able to say, here is a distro that we approve of. I don't think we'll ever get that because of the pragmatic approach we have to things like firmware, plugins, availability of non-free software, user choice, and so on.
Yeah, and I don't think we need that, because there are these distros out there that already focus on that.
Right, and some of them are built on Ubuntu, which is great.
Yep.
Okay, running out of time here. Haley asks, apparently there's an Aquarius M10 tablet as a mid-range device, can be useful and usable for future Ubuntu Touch major updates. I think that the implication there is, if I buy a device now, will it always carry on working? Will I always get the updates in the future? I think is the implication from that.
If you buy the Ubuntu edition of it, then you will get updates from us as long as we can possibly provide updates to it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't buy the Android version of that tablet and assume that it's going to just work with Ubuntu updates, because we can't guarantee that.
Okay. Another question from HeyLK128. Ubuntu desktop apps have been ported to Ubuntu Touch, or will they run natively? So you may have seen in some of the promotional material screenshots and pictures of icons showing some traditional X applications like XChat GNOME, Firefox, LibreOffice, and there's another one, I can't remember, gedit, I think it is.
Yes.
Those are native in terms of they're running on the ARM CPU inside the phone. They're running under XMIA, under MIA. So you're running a traditional legacy X application through MIA on a phone. So yeah, they're native. for
there's
whatever that definition of native is.
there's two different levels. There's CPU native, which they all will be, and then there's display server native, which the easy route will be to not do that and just run through Xmirror. But if they're using one of the major toolkits, then they could be ported to run directly on Mirror instead.
But one of the problems is many of these desktop applications don't suit very well to touch interfaces like, running XChat on a thing this size, or full fat LibreOffice with menu bars and everything on a device this size isn't optimal.
Yeah, most of them are going to be terrible at that.
Right, and it's not to say the app is terrible. It's just that they were never designed to be run on a 4.5-inch screen at 960 by 540 with no keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
They just weren't designed for that. So yeah. Next question is similar to the one we did about the other devices that support. Really, it's the same question, isn't it?
Yep.
How long will we support devices? It's hard to say. I mean, we can't say because it's not our job, but the goal is to continue to support them for as long as possible.
All right, Sponge asks, instead of saying buy an SSD for your laptop, what would you say to users still using 12.04 and letting them into the Unity ecosystem? How would you recommend Unity? So Unity was default in 12.04, so I'm not entirely sure if you're asking about somebody coming from pre-Unity into Unity, or just people who are sticking to an old LTS because they have old hardware. I think in addition to SSD, getting more RAM would be a big help for anything.
I think one of the problems in that kind of era when Unity was a default on 12.04, one of the problems a lot of people had was that their GPU wasn't up to it because it requires OpenGL. Some of them felt a lag, and adding an SSD or adding more RAM probably wouldn't fix that. It's one of the pitfalls of having a device with a built-in GPU built into the CPU or a low-end GPU. Is Unity just didn't run particularly well on it. Now, on the devices you can get now, the OpenGL support is great, and it runs perfectly fine. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, if your machine doesn't run Unity well, don't use Unity. Use something else.
Yeah.
There's no. You don't have to use Unity. If the machine doesn't run it well, don't use it.
Yeah, and there's Mate, there's XFCE and LXDE. Lots of options to choose from. Still staying on Ubuntu.
Next question: what partners at Canonical develop Snappy apps, or is this not a thing yet? Are you allowed to talk about that, Daniel?
Lots of them. You can already go to ubuntu.com/things, or there's another Snappy page in the cloud section. Almost everyone is looking at it. I think what didn't quite play in our favor was that from 15.04, where we saw the first incarnation of Snappy, to 16.04 now, a lot of things changed. But they were all made for good decision. Like, it made sense to make those changes. But I think that's going to cause a bit of a rift now. But we've seen drones, TVs, everything with Snappy. So it is a thing.
And I think Snapcraft is going to really open up the doors to that too, because it does make it so easy to build snaps from existing projects.
Yeah. I think that was the last question of today.
Yes, we're pretty much out of time.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. It's been relentless.
Lots of good questions.
Yeah.
Man.
I loved it.
We almost got to them all. If we
Yeah.
missed your question and you still really want your answer to it, you can join any of our various IRC channels. #Ubuntu Desktop, #Ubuntu Touch, #Ubuntu Quality. All of these have hyphens in the middle. By the way, I didn't mention those. Or, find us on mailing lists, Google+, Discourse.
Diaspora.
Is that still
HTTP.
around? I thought that went the way of Identica.
I'm sure
Now
it's
I'm gonna
still around.
get angry messages from people who still use Identica.
Yes.
It's free software. You can run it yourself. I'm sure people still run it.
They're going to send you angry letters on Identica.
Yes, both of them.
Okay.
Right. And make sure you circle, friend, follow all the Ubuntu on Air accounts you can find. It's a good idea.
And you could watch this video and previous videos on Ubuntu On Air on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ubuntu On Air.
Yeah, why don't you check out the Snappy clinics? They're quite good.
Excellent. Well, thank you, chaps. It's been good fun. And we shall see someone else here next week at the same time. 1600
Thank you,
UTC
guys.
next Tuesday. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.